I swear I didn't mean to stare at her that long. But sometimes your eyes just don't obey. It was supposed to be simple. I'd offered to help her carry some boxes up the narrow stairs of the old building. Mrs. Hale, my literature professor. Mid-40s maybe, but she had this presence that made everyone slow down when she entered a room. Sharp, careful voice. The kind of person who made you sit straighter without asking. Her apartment was smaller than I imagined. Books stacked in every corner, a lamp with a crooked shade, the faint smell of old coffee. She set her keys on the counter and thanked me like I'd done something heroic, though all I'd really done was keep her from dropping a box on the landing. You didn't have to, she said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. I was already here, I answered too quickly, trying not to sound like I cared. The truth? I'd waited. Saw her struggling and couldn't just pass by. That's all. At least, that's what I told myself. She moved around the apartment with this quiet precision, unpacking the box I'd carried up, stacking her books by subject. I stood there a little too long, not knowing if I should leave or offer more help. The silence pressed against me, heavy, like the walls were listening. Coffee? She asked suddenly, her back still to me. I nodded before realizing she couldn't see. Yeah? Sure. The kettle hissed, steam curling into the dim light. She poured it slowly, sliding one mug toward me without meeting my eyes. I noticed her hands, steady, pale fingers, a tiny ink stain near her thumb. She must have been grading earlier. I tried to think of something casual, something safe. Instead, I asked, "Do you ever get tired of it? Teaching all day, then coming back to all this?" She gave the smallest laugh, not bitter but not light either. Every day feels the same lately. Except today, I suppose. I didn't know if that meant me. I wanted it to. My chest tightened, and I sipped the coffee just to cover the silence. It burned, but I didn't let it show. Her eyes finally met mine across the rim of her mug. Longer than they should have. I looked away first. My heart was hammering so loud it felt like she could hear it. I told myself it was nothing. A professor, a student. She was just being polite. But then she stepped closer, taking my empty cup, her hand brushing mine. Just for a second, skin on skin, quick, careless. Except it didn't feel careless. "Thank you," she said softly. The words hung there, too heavy for something so ordinary. I should have left. Said goodnight, walked down those narrow stairs, and forgotten all of it. But instead I froze, waiting, though I didn't know for what. That's when she leaned a little nearer, close enough for me to catch the faint scent of her perfume, something warm and impossible to ignore. She hesitated, searching my face like she was reading words she shouldn't. And then, so quick I almost doubted it happened, her lips brushed mine. Not deep, not long, but undeniable. When she pulled back, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Forget that happened, if you can." If she hadn't said those words, I might have convinced myself the kiss didn't really happen. That I'd imagined it, the warmth, the taste of coffee between us, the sudden closeness. But her whisper was still hanging in the air. "Forget that happened, if you can." I couldn't. The room seemed smaller after that, like the walls had pulled closer. She moved away, turning her back, busying herself with the stack of books again. But her hands shook a little this time, pages slipping against each other, as though even she didn't believe what she'd just done. I stood there, frozen, my throat dry. She was my professor, not just any professor, the one whose lectures I never missed, the one who made me write better, think sharper. And here I was, in her apartment, lips still tingling. "You should probably go," she said finally, without turning around. Her voice was calm, but too even, like she'd practiced it. Yeah, I muttered, though I didn't move. My eyes traced the curve of her shoulders, the way her sweater slipped slightly at the neck. Small details I shouldn't have noticed, but did anyway. Dangerous. That's what this was. If anyone knew, it would ruin her. Maybe me too. But especially her. I didn't mean. She started, then stopped. A pause, sharp and unfinished. I stepped closer before I realized it, my words spilling out clumsy and unsteady. It's okay. You don't have to explain. Her head tilted just slightly, like she wanted to believe me but couldn't. You don't understand, she said. Her fingers tightened on the edge of the book she was holding, knuckles pale. I wanted to ask what she meant, but something in her tone told me it wasn't about me. It was bigger, heavier. The silence stretched, and I filled it the only way I knew how. You seem tired, I said softly. Stupid words, but true. Her eyes had shadows under them I hadn't noticed in class, and up close, her face looked more fragile. She gave a tired smile that didn't reach her eyes. It's been a long year. That was all she offered, but it was enough to make me want to stay. To listen. To be more than just another student who filed in and out of her lectures. I should have left then. Every part of me knew it. But when she turned finally, setting the book down, her gaze held mine longer than it should have. Her lips parted like she was about to speak, then closed again. You don't have to go yet, she said quietly. The words hit harder than the kiss. My heart stuttered in my chest, and I searched her face for some trace of a joke, a mistake. But she was serious. Her hand brushed my arm as she moved past me to set another mug on the counter. It wasn't an accident. Not this time. I almost said something then, something reckless, something I wouldn't be able to take back. The words burned at the edge of my tongue. But I swallowed them down. For now. I told myself I'd only stay a few minutes longer. Just enough to not make it awkward. But minutes blurred, stretching into something else. She sat across from me at the small table, the second cup of coffee untouched between us. Her hand traced the rim absent-mindedly, not drinking, not leaving. I shouldn't have asked you to stay, she murmured finally. You don't have to explain, I said too quickly. I hated how desperate it sounded, but her eyes flicked up to mine anyway, studying me like she was waiting for me to admit something I didn't even understand myself. I shifted in my chair, leaning back, trying to put space between us. But every detail betrayed me, the way I watched the soft movement of her hair when she brushed it back, how my gaze kept landing on her mouth when she paused. She noticed. I know she did. Then, her phone buzzed against the table. The sound jolted both of us, too sharp in the quiet. She turned it over, glanced at the screen, and her lips pressed tight. Who is it? I asked before I could stop myself. She hesitated. No one important. And then, almost to herself. Not anymore. The words hung heavy. I caught the faint tremble in her hand before she set the phone face down, like she was shutting out someone she didn't want in this room. I wondered if it was a husband, an ex, someone she still hadn't told me about. For a second, I thought of leaving again. Standing up, making some excuse, letting her have her privacy. But then she sighed and leaned forward, elbows on the table, her face close enough that the lamplight caught the tired lines around her eyes. I don't usually let anyone in here, she said softly. I swallowed. Why me? Her lips curved, but not in a smile. More like she was trying to figure out the answer herself. Maybe because you're the only one who actually notices things. The words hit harder than I expected. I wanted to deny it, laugh it off, but instead I felt the pull of them, the way her voice cracked ever so slightly. When I reached for my mug, my fingers brushed hers. Neither of us moved away. My pulse was loud in my ears, the heat of her skin impossible to ignore. I should go, I whispered, though my hand stayed where it was. Then go, she whispered back, but she didn't let go of my touch. And that was the moment the knock came. Sharp, sudden, echoing through the small apartment. We both jerked back, the spell broken. She froze, eyes darting to the door. Expecting someone? I asked, my voice rough. No, she breathed. Silence stretched, the knock coming again, more insistent this time. Whoever it was, they weren't leaving. Her hand hovered near mine again, not quite touching, but trembling close enough that I knew, if not for that knock, if not for the world pressing in, something would have happened. Something neither of us could take back. The knock stopped as suddenly as it began. Whoever it was must have left, or maybe they were still standing out there in the hall, listening. The silence afterward felt louder than the sound itself. Her hands were still on the table, fingers curled tight. She didn't move. Neither did I. The air between us was too sharp, too close. Finally, she pushed her chair back, the legs scraping softly against the floor. This is a mistake, she whispered. I almost agreed. I almost stood too, walked out, and pretended I hadn't heard the quiver in her voice. But instead I asked, Then why did you kiss me? The words came out harsher than I meant, almost accusing. But I couldn't take them back. Her eyes snapped to mine. For a second, I thought she'd throw me out. Instead, her mouth opened, closed, then opened again. Because I wanted to. The rawness of it stunned me. No excuses, no careful wording. Just the truth. I leaned forward without thinking, my voice low. And I wanted you to. That broke something. The air changed. Her breath caught, and she looked away, like the admission was too much. Her hands were trembling now, so slightly I almost missed it. You're my student, she said finally, as if reminding herself. I'm supposed to know better. I wanted to pull back, to give her space. But the way she said it wasn't firm. It was fragile, like a thread ready to snap. I don't care, I said, softer this time. I can't pretend it doesn't matter. Her head turned back to me, and in her eyes I saw every wall she tried to build starting to crack. Regret, longing, fear, all of it colliding at once. I reached across the table before I could stop myself, my hand hovering just above hers. Not touching, not yet. The distance between us felt unbearable. Say the word, I whispered, and I'll leave. You'll never have to see me again outside of class. Her lips parted. For a heartbeat, I thought she would say it. That she'd end it right there. Instead, she asked quietly, And if I don't? The question was like a match dropped on dry wood. My chest tightened, heat rushing through me. She wasn't giving me an answer, she was daring me to. We stared at each other across the table, the silence thick, loaded, stretching longer and longer. Finally, she whispered, barely audible, What are we doing? I didn't have an answer. And maybe she didn't want one. The silence between us deepened, heavy enough to crush, and in it lived every possibility of what could happen next. Her words still echoed in the silence. What are we doing? I didn't answer, couldn't. My mouth was dry, my pulse hammering. I thought if I opened my mouth, something reckless would spill out. Before I could try, her phone buzzed again. Loud, sharp, breaking the fragile quiet we'd built. She didn't move to silence it this time. Just stared at it, her face unreadable. Finally, with a small, resigned exhale, she turned it over and shoved it toward me. The screen lit up with a name I recognized. Not from her life. From mine. It was my brother's name. I froze. My stomach dropped, the room tilting around me. Why is he calling you? Her lips pressed together. She didn't answer right away. She just rubbed her temple with two fingers, like the weight of the truth had been pressing there too long. I should have told you, she said quietly. Months ago. I stared, waiting, every nerve strung tight. Before you ever stepped into my class, before you were even enrolled. I met him. Her voice cracked, low and rough. We went out. A few times. It didn't work. He stopped calling. I thought it was over. I leaned back, heart racing. My brother. My professor. The pieces slammed together and didn't fit, no matter how I turned them. You. My voice broke. I had to swallow before I could keep going. You were with him? Her eyes met mine, steady now, though glassy. Briefly. But not like this. The words landed heavy. Not like this. I didn't know if that made it better or worse. For a long moment either of us spoke. My hands curled into fists on my knees, nails biting skin. 100 questions fought to break loose. Why she never mentioned it, if she still thought about him, if she saw me or just some echo of him. Finally I managed. So what am I then? Just a mistake on repeat? Her face fell. She shook her head fiercely. No. Don't you dare think that. Then what? My voice cracked on the word. She leaned forward, the intensity in her eyes cutting through my anger. You're the only one who makes me feel. She stopped herself, biting the words back. I stared at her, breath caught. Feel what? Her silence said everything. She wasn't ready to name it, but the way her hand twitched on the table, reaching toward me before pulling back, gave her away. The phone buzzed again. My brother, still calling. I looked at the screen, then at her. My chest ached with something I couldn't name, betrayal, longing, both tangled together. Finally, I pushed the phone back toward her, my voice low. Answer him. Or answer me. The words hung between us like a blade, sharp enough to cut it away. Her hand hovered above the phone, but she didn't take it. The buzzing stopped on its own, leaving only the sound of my uneven breathing between us. I can't answer him, she said finally, her voice low, breaking. Not now. Not like this. I leaned forward, my hands pressed flat to the table. Then answer me. Her eyes lifted slowly, meeting mine. There was no shield left, no professor's authority, no polished restraint. Just a woman, tired, torn, trembling. I didn't plan for this, she whispered. I told myself it was impossible. That it had to stay impossible. But when you carried those boxes up my stairs, when you stood in my kitchen like you belonged here, I couldn't stop. The honesty in her voice hit harder than any kiss. My chest felt tight, like her words had cracked something open I'd been holding back too long. You think I wanted this? I asked, half laughing but shaking my head. I tried to ignore it. I sat in the back of class, avoided your eyes. I told myself it was just respect, just admiration. Her lips parted, waiting. But it's not, I finished. My throat burned, the truth scraping out. It's you. I can't stop thinking about you. The room went quiet again. No interruptions this time. No phone, no knock, no escape. Just the two of us, cornered by the truth we couldn't outrun anymore. Her chair scraped softly as she stood. She moved slowly, step by step, until she was beside me. I tilted my head up, my heart in my mouth. Her hand came down gently on my shoulder, fingers tightening as if to steady herself. For a moment she just stood there, breathing unevenly. Then she bent closer, her forehead resting against mine. This will change everything, she whispered. I know. Her breath shivered against my skin. You'll regret it. Then let me regret it with you, I murmured. That broke whatever restraint was left. Her lips found mine, not quick, not hesitant this time. Full, desperate, pulling me in. The kiss was messy, unpracticed, but it was real. Every wall we'd built came crashing down in that moment. When she pulled back, her eyes glistened. She searched my face like she was memorizing it, like she knew there was no going back. We can't pretend anymore, she said, voice steady now. I nodded, my chest aching with both fear and relief. So we won't. The silence that followed wasn't heavy this time. It was loaded, yes, with risk, with consequence, with something fragile and terrifying. But it was also alive. We stayed there, close, either moving away. Two people who shouldn't have crossed the line, knowing they had, and deciding, together, not to turn back. We didn't talk much after the kiss. Words felt too fragile, too clumsy to fit what had just happened. Instead, we sat side by side at her small kitchen table, the lamp buzzing faintly above us, the untouched coffee growing cold. Her phone stayed dark. My brother's name still lingered in the back of my mind, but it didn't carry the same weight anymore. Not compared to the way she leaned just slightly toward me, her arm brushing mine, like some unspoken answer had already been given. I've been alone for a long time, she said finally. Her voice wasn't shaky anymore, it was steady, bare. Too long, maybe. I told myself I didn't need anyone, that I was past all of that. But you… She shook her head softly, almost laughing at herself. You make it hard to keep lying. I turned to her, really looking at her. Not as the professor who stood at the front of the room, not as the woman who seemed untouchable, but as someone who just handed me a truth she hadn't shared with anyone else. I don't care about the rules, I said quietly. Not about what people think, not about what's supposed to happen. I care about you. Her eyes closed for a moment, like she was letting the words sink in. When she opened them again, there was no hesitation left. This won't be easy, she admitted. We'll have to be careful. We'll have to be stronger than we think we are. I nodded. Then we will. The silence that followed wasn't heavy or dangerous anymore. It was warm, settled. Like the air after a storm when everything still drips but the sky has cleared. We talked a little longer, about nothing important, really. Classes, the weather, the leaky faucet in her kitchen. Normal things, as if to remind ourselves that life would keep moving, that this moment wasn't some dream we'd wake from. When I finally stood to leave, she walked me to the door. Neither of us wanted to open it, to let the world back in. She reached out, fingers brushing mine once more, her touch lingering. I don't know where this will lead, she said softly. Neither do I admitted. Then I gave her the only truth I had left. But I want to find out. With you. Her smile was small, cautious, but real. The kind of smile that made my chest ache with something deeper than just want. And as I stepped out into the quiet hallway, I knew this wasn't just a forbidden spark anymore. It was the beginning of something neither of us had expected, and neither of us was willing to let go. Speech Balloon, did you enjoy the story? Red Heart, what kind of stories would you like to hear next?